I wanted to just read a couple of things from the covenant that was given to us on page 333 of the Teachings and Commandments. This is what the Lord has promised to us. Well, first of all, he says this is what you have to do to receive these promises. He says, teach your children to honor me, seek to recover the lost sheep, remnant of this land of Israel, bring them unto me and teach them of my ways to walk in them. Care for the poor among you, lighten one another's burdens, and study my words, and let them be a standard for your works. Now, if you do these things, it seems pretty simple, doesn't it? I mean, they're kind of general. I suppose you could write a book about those 5 little pieces of things that we are required to do. But the blessings that he gives in return are amazing, aren't they? They're wonderful. This is what he says. If you do these things, I, the Lord, your God, will be with you and will never forsake you. And I will lead you in the path which will bring you peace to you in the troubling season, now fast approaching. I will raise you up and protect you, abide with you and gather you in due time. And this shall be a land of promise to you as your inheritance from me. The earth will yield its increase, and you will flourish on the mountains and upon the hills. And the wicked will not come against you, because the fear of the Lord will be with you. I will visit my house, which the remnant of my people shall build. So, who's the remnant? I guess that could be a whole talk among itself. I personally, I believe we are remnant. And I know people say, well, no, the remnant's the people of Lehi, the remnant is the Jews. But I believe if you have accepted this covenant, then you fulfill the promises that were made to the tribes of Israel. And that's foretold in Israel. We become the remnant with the descendants of Lehi and with the descendants of Judah. Together, we become the remnant. The Gentiles are not the remnant, but the Gentile covenant makers, I believe, are included as a remnant. I will dwell therein in my house to be among you, and no one will need to say, know ye the Lord, for all shall know me, from the least, that's me, to the greatest. I will teach you things that have been hidden from the foundation of the world, and we're already starting to receive that blessing from the revelations that we've received. And I'm thinking it's just going to accelerate. I will teach you the things that have been hidden from the foundation of the world, and your understanding will reach unto heaven. And you shall be called the children of the Most High God, and I will preserve you against the harvest. And the angels sent to harvest the world will gather the wicked into bundles to be burned, but will pass over you as my particular treasure. So those are amazing blessings. I know all of you have read those before, and all of you have accepted all of those things, but wow, doesn't it just kind of send some chills to read those things? And that we live in this day, at this time, these things are happening. Here's what Mormon says about the covenant people that lived in America. He says, God knoweth their prayers, that they were on behalf of their brethren. And he knoweth their faith, for in his name could they remove mountains. And in his name could they cause the earth to shake, and by the power of his word did they cause prisons to tumble to the earth. Yea, even fiery furnace could not harm them, neither wild beasts, nor poisonous serpents, because of the power of his word. So, do you believe that? Do you believe that you as a covenant people can bring these things about, if you needed to, if there was a necessity? Do you have the faith to bring it about? I think the Lord, in offering the covenant unto us, is saying, you're just like these people. And the time will come when things get really bad that you may be called upon to do some of these things. There has to be a necessity, of course. Now, Mormon goes on in chapter 7, as recorded in Moroni chapter 7. Mormon goes on to talk to these righteous people, and he explains to them what is expected of a covenant people. He says, "For behold, my brethren, it is given you to judge, that you may know good from evil, and the way to judge is as plain, that ye may know with a perfect knowledge, as the daylight is from the dark night." And I know a lot of us, and myself included, are like, how can you tell the difference between what the Lord is telling you and maybe what your own mind is saying to you? How can you tell the difference? Pay attention. The Lord is telling you, as a covenant people, you have the ability to judge. So trust that. Trust that judgment that the Lord has given to you. "Wherefore I beseech of you, brethren, that ye should search diligently in the light of Christ, that ye may know good from evil. And if ye will lay hold upon every good thing and condemn it not, ye certainly will be a child of God, Christ." There's a key there. If you will search diligently. So you have to be diligent. You have to spend some time. You have to be motivated to want to learn of the Lord and seek him. "By faith, men who obtained faith, they became sons of God." Of course, he includes women. "And as surely as Christ liveth, he spake these words unto our fathers, saying, Whatsoever thing ye shall ask the Father in my name, which is good, in faith believing that ye shall receive, behold, it shall be done unto you." That's pretty amazing. That is amazing. Mormon continues to teach that miracles and the ministering of angels should be commonplace among you. I kind of think it is. I think there are people probably here that can testify that angels have appeared or witnessed, or they have experienced a ministering of angels unto them. It's happening. Pay attention. It's happening. It's going on all around us. But you got to pay attention. You got to believe it's going on and it's happening. It is. I testify to you. It is. "Angels show themselves unto them of strong faith and a firm mind in every form of godliness. But behold, my beloved brethren, I judge better things." This is after he's talked about the evil and people who are wicked. He says, "But you are not like that. I judge differently of you." Again, he's talking to these righteous people. He says, "For I judge that ye have faith in Christ because of your meekness." So are you meek? "For ye have not faith in him, for if ye have not faith in him, ye are not fit to be numbered among the people of his church." So then Mormon goes on to teach about faith, hope, and charity, which all of us as covenant people should develop. Now, what comes next? Well, we should follow what Mormon is instructing us. And we can also read the instruction that Benjamin gives to the covenant people of his time. We know that in Mosiah, chapter 5, 6, 7. He talks about, okay, you've accepted the covenant, now what? And then he tells them, here's what you do. And so I have a note here. It says, don't be like the 5 foolish virgins. I think what I was getting at there was, so there's 10 virgins, right? And they're asleep. They wake up. The messages come. Hey, the bridegroom is coming. Wake up, wake up. And they all get together. They get themselves together. The 5 foolish virgins all of a sudden find out there's no oil left. Well, what does the oil represent? It represents the Spirit. We know that Joseph Smith said that in the Doctrine and Covenants that oil represents the Spirit of God. So the 5 foolish have run out of the Spirit of God. So they go to the wise virgins and they say, give us some of your oil. And I remember in a Sunday school class, there was one man who got up and said, well, why are the wise virgins so selfish? Give them the oil. And people were telling him, they can't. How do you give somebody else the Spirit? You can't give it to them. Only God can do that. You know, it's not they're being selfish. They can't. So they tell the foolish virgins, look, go to the merchants And maybe they can help you out. So what is he saying? He's saying, you've relied upon the world or the government or something or somebody to provide you with what was necessary for you to get by in troubled times. So why don't you go to them and see if they can help you? And of course, they can't. They're not going to be able to help them. So don't be like the foolish virgins and put all your eggs into what men can do to help you through the troubled times. Because it's going to be so bad that they're not going to be able to help you. Now, as a covenant people, we're also supposed to embrace the gifts of the Spirit, because according to Mormon and Moroni, that is how the covenant people are recognized, is the exercise of the gifts of the Spirit. And Moroni tells us to seek them, actively seek them, seek the gifts of the Spirit, and they will be given to you if you seek them. And we need to be seeking. We need to be constantly seeking. But you know what? You also need to be aware. So I remember a story about a naturalist back in the early 1800s. And this is in the book called On Walden's Pond. Who's the author of that book? Emerson? David Thoreau tells his story. So he's being interviewed by a newspaper man, and he's on a trail. They're walking out by Walden's Pond where Thoreau lived. And the man is saying, well, how do you discover these things? How do you find this? Thoreau had this collection of Indian warheads, or Indian arrowheads. And this newspaperman said, how do you find these? And they stopped, and Thoreau reached down, and almost between the legs of the newspaperman, he picked up an arrowhead. It's there. It's right there. You have to be aware. You just have to open your eyes. You have to open yourself up. You have to be aware of what's going on around you. My son, who's a psychiatrist, told us about a patient that he had who thought that his torso was missing. I mean, seriously, this guy was perfectly sane and cogent, and he would come in and talk to my son, and he said, you know what? My torso is missing, And I've told this story to a couple of you before. There's a story of a psychiatrist who had a patient who thought he was dead. So he would come to the doctor, the psychiatrist, and he'd say, I'm dead. And the psychiatrist said, well, what makes you think you're dead? He says, well, I've got all the evidences of being dead. And the psychiatrist says, well, do you think that dead men can bleed? He says, well, I don't know. He said, well, look, here's a book. Read this book and come back to me when we have our session next week, and we'll talk about it. And this book is all about, the circulation system and how when people die, blood stops, the heart stops beating. So he comes back and he says, so you read that book? Yeah, I read the book. Well, what did you learn from it? Well, apparently dead people don't bleed. And so the psychiatrist thought, aha. He took a pin really quick and he pricked the man's finger and blood came out. And the man goes, oh my gosh, oh no, dead men do bleed. So is that where we are? I mean, we believe in this paradigm, and the spirit world is going to be so different. The Lord also talks about several times in the Doctrine and Covenants that he's going to do his strange work. Well, it's strange to us because our mindset is in the world. Our mindset is in material things. And I think that we need to adjust that. We need to become aware. We need to seek the Lord in all the things that we do. We need to be ready for when the call comes. And I think we all know it's not going to come through the prophet. It's not going to come from an announcement on television. It's going to come in the night, in a dream, to you. And it will come to families. It will come to individuals. It will come to single people. And they will just be gone. They'll take the message and they'll be gone. And some people are going to wonder, well, where did they go? But unless you are practicing as a covenant people, you may not get that message. You may not receive that message. You may not be ready. So when you read, and I'll just close here. When you read in the testimony of Jesus, when he talks about being a sentinel, wow, what a picture that gives to you in your mind. A sentinel. Christ is a sentinel. And I know that, having spent some time in the military and having to stand guard, you basically stand guard and you are aware, but you don't leave your post. You do not leave your post. And that's what Christ is referring to. You don't leave your post. But are you sedentary? Are you just waiting? Or are you active? Are you preparing yourself? Are you studying? Are you reading? Are you trying to get close to the Lord? Are you filling your lamp with holy oil so that you're ready for whatever the Lord comes to bring you? Remember, it took Abraham wandering for 40 or 50 years before he saw Christ. It took Moses 40 years before he saw God and received his mission. So it may be a long wait for many of us. And we need to be prepared and be ready. I hope that I've said some things that might cause you to reflect and might cause you to think. And I would like to bear you my witness of these things. I believe they're true. And I say this in the name of Christ. Amen.